now we're moving on to a very interesting segment, one that many of you have been waiting eagerly for. 2020 has been an unforgettable year for the Indian media industry, and we all do agree, right, that what does this year, it's been really difficult, and what this new year has in store for us, we all would love to know. We believe one man has all the answers, and we can't wait to hear him out. So let's invite Mr. Vikram Sakhuja, Group CEO, Madison Media and OOH at Madison World, for a fireside chat with the man who knows it all, Mr. Uday Shankar, entrepreneur and FICCI president. Believe me, this is going to be a really interesting session. Do join in our online conversation using the hashtag PMAR2021. And here I would like to invite Mr. Vikram Sakhuja on screen to take this conversation forward.
Thank you so much, Khayati. Okay, guys, the person that we're going to be bringing in front of you, he's broken the glass ceiling for all journalists to not only head a news channel, but he's also gone on then to most famously and brilliantly lead India's largest sports and entertainment network. And from there, of course, he went on to become the 21st Century Fox's APAC head. And then as it transitioned to a Disney company, he was leading that. Now he's pivoted into a completely interesting, exciting new area of being an entrepreneur. And of course, he is our current FICCI president. He's an absolute visionary, an iconoclast, one of the boldest decision makers that I know, and a chap who definitely calls a spade a spade. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome on this entire dais, Uday Shankar. Hi, Uday. I can see you've got a FICCI branding behind you.
Anything for some free advertising. I've learned it from you and Sambal Sara, Vikram.
Okay, we've got a lot to cover, so I'm going to dive right in and really looking forward to the session. Okay, let's start big picture. I think you're the first media professional to lead FICCI. What do you think can be advertising and media's role in shaping the entire commerce and industry?
It's a great question, very interesting one, Vikram. And first of all, thank you very much for having me here. Delighted to be part of this conversation, and always, a great experience to get into a conversation with you, whether it is formal or informal. I've always enjoyed our serious exchange of views. We both believe in what we say. So thank you for having me, even though I've exited media as an executive and professional. But to answer your question, I think, we have somehow punched under our weight in media and entertainment as far as the larger role in making an economic contribution to the country is concerned. Also, in terms of playing a role in building the brand India, media and entertainment can play a big role. And I think we have not, and I'm not blaming media. I think the country as a whole needs to be aware of that. Country as a whole needs to understand how to leverage the power of that. I mean, if you look at brand US, just imagine the role that Hollywood has played. Before, I think it'll be tough to describe that what went global first, the American way of life or the Hollywood way of life and Hollywood content. Without Hollywood, it is anybody's guess whether we would have internalized as much of America and accepted it as seamlessly as we have today in across the world, from the developed part to the underdeveloped part, from democracy to totalitarian regimes. The one thing which everybody has internalized is this American way. We may disagree with politics, we may disagree with a lot of American issues, but the American way of life. And I think that's the role that media and entertainment can play in building brand India. And that comes with massive economic upside for the sector and for the country, because there are very few countries who have the potential strengths that we have in India in terms of our heritage of storytelling, rich cultural tapestry, the diversity, nuances of our culture, and our ability to tell great stories traditionally. On top of that, today, as the world has gone, is getting disrupted by technology, we also have, one of the strongest and most sort of broad-based technological infrastructure in the country. Our engineering talent, our capability to, visualize globally, Indian engineering talent is what is powering the technological advances. We should be able to do that here, but unfortunately we haven't done that so far. But I think there is there is a huge opportunity for us to do that.
Great. So today's forum is one of actually talking the addicts in advertising. Now, specifically, the advertising and marketing sector for the longest time has been hovering at about 0.3% of the GDP. For developed countries, I mean, of course, you took the Hollywood example, but purely from an advertising standpoint, why do you think that has been the case out here, and what does it take to really stimulate ADEX as a share of GDP?
Again, it's a very good question. The answers are not easy to come by, but I'll tell you what my view on this is. That first and foremost, we are still in early stages of building the culture of advertising as an intrinsic part of a business enterprise. It is still considered, first of all, big companies game. It is still considered, something that you it's nice to do. It's also, there is a little bit of understanding in traditional entrepreneurs minds that it's a bit of a vanity play. It's not seen yet by and large across the board, from big corporates. Of course, it's very established, but as you go down the pop strata of business, it's still not seen as something that's an essential tool of your business, of building your brand is a strategic lever of creating value and getting market share, creating a premium share of the segment. Those things are still not widely established, and I think we, as media professionals across the buy and sell side, we haven't done a great job of evangelizing. If you look at the number of brands that advertise in India, that number is still really, really small. It's grown dramatically because of digital penetration that has come in. But if you look at traditional media, TV, print, and radio, etc., that number is really small for a country of the size and diversity of India. Until you do that, and until we all go, just selling inventory and buying inventory is certainly not the best way of participating in the economic value creation that's going on. I think media can play a much, much deeper and larger role. The problem is that it's my community, and whatever I am today, I owe it to the community of media and media persons. So with full gratitude, if I can say, we have taken, we've been somewhat short-sighted. We have we have undersold ourselves. That we have run our businesses. We are extremely competitive within our own narrow set, uh, even to the extent of destroying value for one another. But we haven't gone ahead and painted a larger vision for the world and created a central space for the community of media and entertainment in that larger world, in that larger
Wonderful.
vision. And
Which
that is where the big problem is.
completely agree. Now, as we are seeing, and you mentioned that some of the growth, the number of advertisers are coming through digital. Over the times years, we've seen that print used to have roughly about 2 lakh advertisers, 2 to 3 lakh. Digital also has about 3 4 lakh. TV is in the maybe 10 to 15,000 range, and so on and so forth. Now these are kind of numbers that we're talking. The growth momentum, of course, is right now all behind TV and digital. At this
Correct.
point, do you believe that this sort of momentum or this kind of trend is going to continue, and will some of these other mediums like print and maybe print radio will, out of our home probably not, but will these really die out as we see in some of the other markets, or do you see a sustaining power to them?
Look, I think these are tough days ahead for a lot of a lot of segments like print and out of home and radio, etc. They've been devastated during COVID. I don't read too much into that devastation, and I don't really, I saw this really, really deep and comprehensive presentation by Sam, and the data is, scary. But I think that will pass. But I've always believed that each crisis just manifests itself on individuals and businesses, and only brings out the latent strengths and weaknesses during the crisis. The crisis is the best sort of spotlight for the latent weaknesses and strengths. And I think what we see with print is, of course, distribution of papers was disrupted, and there was no advertising happening, so you see those contractions. However, it was already a trend that just got amplified dramatically. And if you're not seeing the bounce back as dramatic as you're seeing in something like, let's say, TV, and I have view on TV. But if you see that, it's primarily because the businesses, I mean, the newspaper business in this country has been built entirely on the back of advertising. That is a suicidal way to build a business. If you have two streams of revenue, why would you go and kill one stream of revenue? Just imagine a 3-year-old could tell you it's not an act of genius. And for 30 years in this country, we hailed those entrepreneurs and managers who pushed that line of strategy as amazing visionaries, because in the short term, it worked for them. In the long term, everybody is dead. So this is really, really, I don't understand this.
No,
We all,
that's a great segue you're giving me. So I'll come to your subscription versus advertising bit in a second. But you also said you had a view on TV. Let's hear that.
so again, the same on, the view about TV. TV has done, in the last 20 years, it has done better than most of the segments. And I think TV has created a national market for content, and more than that, for advertising. That's pretty commendable, I have to say that. Star played a key role in that, but the other television networks, the bigger ones in particular, and some of the stronger regional networks have played a very big role in that. However, TV has two problems. I think the first problem is television creativity has a lot of ground to catch up. You cannot have shows that premiered, reality or game shows that premiered 20 years ago. Still, if they're still leading shows on your network, there is a problem. It's just a simple problem of inadequate creativity. Television still does, good content, but we all complain about regulation, FDI restrictions, etc., foreigners not being welcome. But a lot of segments have been just kept alive because of those restrictions. If it was full-fledged global competition that we see in many other sectors, many sectors of media would have died. I don't even understand what happens in radio. Why? It's just, there are literally times when the same song is playing across multiple stations. You keep switching, you don't listen to the song, you keep switching, and you keep getting the same song. And when it's not because it's probably the best song or a song that the whole nation must listen to. It's because it's the song that's available cheapest, if not free. Now, there is a serious creativity problem or content problem in media in general, in TV, in print, in radio, etc., etc. The other problem is that we are still not very, we're not building brands. Again, the same issues that, there is not enough distinction that we are creating between channel A and channel B. There are sectors where it's automatically happening because, like sports, it's available exclusively on one channel, but by and large, there is a huge problem of that. And now the third thing is that when you're getting, the world of content has moved from being just a creative business. And I think, as I told you, that I believe that our creative agenda needs to step up. But the world of media has moved from being just a creative business to a business of creativity and technology. And by and large, media companies, no offense, my friend, but by and large, media companies think changing a bulb is the climax of technological skills. We have, we set up a business. That's the last time we want to see an engineer or a technology guy come and set up my sets, put the lights on, make sure that in TV teleprompter works, the rotary machine works, and get the hell out of my life. That's not working. A complete creative experience requires you to leverage the power of technology. And if you do that, and I'm not saying that technology, just even in building, look at the amount of technology that goes in creating visual content. It can scale up a great deal. And if you do that, it's a great business model. You can open up new markets. Smaller countries like Korea, like Turkey, they are exporting content globally and creating a sustainable economic model through that. And a country like India is not able to, our content does not generally travel even from one state to another. And
So,
that is
no,
a
so let's
that is
take
a
your
problem.
TV, let's take your TV point to a logical conclusion. So today, let's say there are about 880 million people watching TV. You got about maybe 450 million people watching YouTube, and then you got maybe about 120 million watching the other OTT platforms in an unduplicated way. Assuming that there is more creativity and tech happening in both YouTube and all the OTTs, are you saying that this number will dwindle for TV in favor of the other platforms?
You know, Look, you must understand one thing. One of the great advantages TV has is that it's also supplying a lot of content to streaming services. So there is, that and that because you're creating that content and monetizing it across two screens, it creates a certain advantage. But I think we are coming to and the other big advantage that television has is that it's really cheap. I think to get a whole suite of entertainment, sports, movie, and news channels for anything from 150 to 250 rupees in this country is still possible, and that gets you the basic content. So that I think is a huge advantage. And that also keeps the pressure artificially high on streaming services, because when you're pricing content for subscribers, you have to keep in mind the competitive environment. And if TV is so cheap, streaming services can only be so expensive. So that is an advantage that TV has, but I don't see how it will be sustainable forever. So unless we change the creative game and really bring in high quality talent, make the right investments, and create content that travels beyond our immediate geography that we create content for, there is a problem. And then there's this whole issue of building brands. Whether everybody, whether it is the production house as a brand, Hollywood is as much known for its celebrity talent as it is known for its celebrity or well-known production studios. There, so we have an opportunity to do all that. If we don't do that, I think we will struggle.
Okay. Now, on the other part that you're talking about between advertising versus subscription, what exactly is you've known the consumers pretty well. Are they going to, how much are they willing to pay for content, if anything? I mean, of course, print is horribly subsidized. We'd love to see them, but how much is the capacity of a consumer to pay for a newspaper, then pay for a TV subscription, and then or a DTH or a cable subscription, and so on and so forth, and the OTTs and all the other platforms. So,
Look, Vikram, I think
what would be your sort of kernel of advice that you would give to how a person would actually spend his money, a consumer would spend his money, how can monetize subscription?
so first of all, look, we are in mass media, and both the words are equally important, media as well as the mass. So you need to have a proposition that allows you to be attractive to the largest section of people. I totally get that. However, everything doesn't need to be sold to everyone. By definition, a Mercedes sells much less than a Maruti, but a Mercedes makes money on each car that it sells, and so does Maruti. Some people play the volume game, some people play the premium game, and we should be able to do that as well. I think not doing that is a mistake. So everyone just going after everybody. As a result of that, there are, your capacity to, or your desire to pay, or openness to pay for content is very different from somebody who's not in your, who doesn't have the same background. So I totally get it that people who are just coming into the formal media consumer groups, only recently, from small towns, villages, etc., people with limited income and limited exposure, you should create cheaper products for them that they can afford. But there has to be a agenda, almost continuous agenda, to get everybody up the value cycle. This is how everybody succeeds in business, that you bring in new consumers and you continuously get, sort of upgrade that consumer in terms of their ability to to pay. And they will pay.
Great.
Consumers are willing to pay a great deal. In fact, often in my experience, consumers go an inch more, or stretch a little bit more in order to pay for what they originally set out to pay, provided, and it's a big provided, they see a value proposition. But as I told you, that the content that by and large you see across our TV channels, or in our newspapers, or on our radio channels, there's really no, not that much
Sameness
more.
to it.
Sorry.
Correct. There's a lot of sameness to it, and it's about time they
There's a lot
reinvented
of
themselves.
sameness to it. So why Asian consumers, I've seen across the board, from across my, during my experience of running Asia Pacific, I've seen Asian consumers to be very value conscious. I can't talk about consumers in other market, but here, but value conscious doesn't mean that they are reluctant to pay. They want value for money, and we are, we've not done enough in doing that.
Got it. Now, just I want to move to measurement, but before I do that, uh, on the language front, there was a time when mass media or media in India, especially TV and even print for that matter, was driven by, well, print was driven by English at one point in time, and then of course Hindi was what the TV part was. But increasingly, the regional play has sort of taken hold. In fact, you've had a huge role to play as you started the regionalization of Star a decade back, or close to. And if tomorrow you're going to be coming out with some platform, I mean, you're going to get into any content or platform, which language would you bet on?
Look, I'm a big believer in local languages, all local languages. Why would you, just because we were ruled for 200 years by the British, why this fascination to create a business model that is dependent on English? I don't understand. Those days are gone. And look, I came to Star. I did my bit in driving it into regional markets. But Star's philosophy was very clear. Fox, which was then News Corp, was very clear that they came in as a premium English content provider, but very quickly they pivoted and they went into Hindi, because that was the most attractive language by the size of population, and it worked really well. Launch of Star Plus, but so I think you're in that position in India where you can go and pick up really any language and create a massive business. But the question is, can you go and disrupt the status quo in that business, in that market? And that is where the problem. If you're going to be offering the same kind of content, the same proposition that 6 other players have had, then what's the point? Then you're not going to be able to create much. So I can give you one example, that we went and my first acquisition in Star was this small channel in a small market called Kerala, and the channel was called Asianet. And we, at that time, everybody thought that I was stupid, but that stupidity has really worked brilliantly for us, because that channel has created so much value in the core market, and it has given us an ability to compete and win in most markets in South India. So it's not about which market you go to. I mean, the joy of 135 crore population is that you could find enough number of people interested in any business that you create. Question is, can you create a great business in the area that you've chosen to?
Great. Okay, now uh, I want to talk briefly on measurement, because I don't know whether you caught Sam's piece towards the end when he's giving advice to advertisers. And we've clearly, 2020 has been, we've moved two steps back when it's come to TV measurement, when it's come to print measurement, it's been a complete halt. and of course, digital measurement continues to not have any industry measurement kind of thing. What would be your demand, both as FICCI president and as Uday Shankar, on this entire aspect of measurement? And would the two be same demands be same, or would they be different?
Look, as FICCI president, I am not sure what the demand should be, but I think they won't be different. You know one thing about me, that I do not speak in different voices. What I believe as an individual is what I believe as in my official capacity. So I'll tell you what, first of all, it was really heartening to see Sam say a GRP is not a GRP or a CPRP is not a CPRP. Finally, I think my job in media has been done, because I kept saying this for 15, 20 years. And the fact that Vikram Sakhuja and Sam Balsara have come around to that view, and it's being officially blessed at Pitch Madison Report and Wheel, is a matter of great satisfaction, because a GRP or a CPRP is not just a CPRP. There are CPRPs and there are CPRPs. Number one.
I mean, you
But my
managed to
bigger
get an inflation in a deflationary year. You got inflation on an IPL rate to well over 11 lakhs per 10 seconds. That tells you
correct.
that consumers or other advertisers see a GRP is not a GRP.
Exactly my point. They are not, but you have to create a proposition. People were starved for content. IPL was bound to be great, and I have to say that my erstwhile company and my colleagues in Star Sports, they did an absolutely outstanding job of producing the IPL. So there was consumer satisfaction, and I think we charged a lot of money, and advertisers paid, and I'm delighted that we were able to deliver on whatever they paid. So a GRP is not a GRP, but most important thing is that a sample based measurement, Vikram, was always a suboptimal solution, and it was limited by the technology available in the time. Today, when it is possible to accurately measure the whole universe and not just a sample, why would you not do that? And if you are not doing that, there is always, you're leaving yourself exposed to all kinds of distortions. That's the real issue. There was a time when you could not get real time data, etc. So you picked up some sample and you collected data manually from there, and you did that was fine. The world was a different place. Before that, people maintained a diary of what they watched. It was as basic as that. But today you should be able to measure the whole universe. The second thing that I have, and it's a controversial point, and I'm not sure whether FICCI would endorse this point. So I'm making this in my personal capacity. Why do we need a community rating system? This tribal behavior of measuring content is really totally, again, is a legacy of the past, when it was so complicated to measure data, etc., that we all went and said to somebody, okay, you come and measure the data for all of us and we'll pay you some money. Why do we need to do it today? If none of the digital digital services are subscribing to third party data, and they are telling you that they have as many subscribers. If I could come and tell you that I have as many subscribers as whatever I had at Hotstar, and you would believe that, and if I gave you the data about their consumption behavior, and you would believe that, and you would buy advertising and inventory based on that, why would I not do that for TV? I don't get it.
Because the reason is because today you have three different, at least on digital, we've got three different data sources. They all give you different numbers for the same reading. So, I mean, arguably an OTT platform will give me a certain number, Moat will give me another number, and a third party will give you a third number. Which number should I go by?
You should go by my
So,
number. It is my proprietary information. You should go by my number. If you can accept the number that you get from the others, why would you not accept the number that you get from there? So I'm not in favor. You know my position on this. I've never been in favor of this third party, measurement structure, because we have, look at the kind of distortion anomalies that we have created in this country. It's almost alarming, if not dangerous, what is happening in the name of data. This whole current controversy, without going too far into that, everything that's happened has happened. The whole degradation that we are seeing whether it is in news or whether it is other controversy, is on account of our unhealthy obsession with ratings. Are an important tool, but they're a business tool. They're a business tool for engagement between Uday Shankar as the media executive and Vikram Sakhuja as media buyer. You and I need a currency so that you know that what you're getting for what I'm selling. But now suddenly we over the years we turned this into a measurement of our machismo. We turned this into a measurement of our success. Data, the market share became the end all and be all, not of your business existence, but your entire existence. And that's unhealthy. And that has led to inadequate focus on, that has led to too much focus on tactical, sometimes distorted, sometimes outright corrupt practices, and inadequate focus on long term health and strategy of the business.
So two corollaries from what you're saying. One is, yes, there needs to be a currency, which is why probably if you go to each channel or each platform and use their data, you may not get that currency. But second thing is that if that currency has to be there, do you think it's better that there is a system which is funded maybe as a percent of billings and managed by agencies and advertisers, and media owners are kept out of it, so broadcasters are kept out of it, would be more healthy?
To be honest with you, I'm indifferent to that. And the basic assumption here that you're making, and I disagree with that assumption, Vikram, is that if broadcasters are involved in that, they will corrupt it, and advertisers and agencies will not corrupt it. I think the proclivity for that measurement system and that whole thing to be distorted or corrupted remains the same either ways. Who owns it is totally, I'm totally indifferent to that. That and full confession, I played a key role in bringing down TAM and setting up BARC. And I think BARC has been a huge letdown. But I don't think it's been a letdown because broadcasters and advertisers and agencies were stakeholders in this. I think it's been a letdown because we did not create a 21st century. We did not have a vision that was in tune with the possibilities in 21st century.
So for a moment, if you have to say, moving forward from our learning from the past, do you think it would be better to again re-privatize? If you have to have a currency, you may say that
It's still
just
private, right?
which should be, well, right now it's still, there's a joint industry body which is sponsoring it. But do you think, and earlier, of course, it was a completely private company like TAM. Do you think it's better
I
to
think
probably go
I think just for the controversy that involvement in BARC has created for broadcasters, they should just get out of there.
Okay, that's
It's
a
not
big
worth it.
statement we got out of you today. Okay, and
It's not worth all the suggestions of impropriety,
I completely
questions of integrity that the broadcasters have faced, because I think by and large broadcasters are clean business people and they have done a good job. They have serviced the consumer's interest well, and to tar them with the same brush just because there are some issues with BARC. The issues with BARC are intrinsic to the structure and management and capabilities within BARC. It's not that there was this grand conspiracy of broadcasters coming in to say, let's just do this. And it is
so the last
the
point on that.
unsavory fallout is the reason, is one good reason for broadcasters to get out of BARC.
And just closing on the last point on that one, we've already seen that whatever the 22 to 25,000 crores is the TV AdX. There's another 5,000 crores of video coming through YouTube and all the OTTs. Probably that might grow. There has been this call for the longest time to have audiovisual ratings also coming out through the same sort of rating system. Now, in the past, that entire stalemate between measuring ads and content led to a certain impasse. How do you think we should now tackle that same issue? Because it's probably the same place where it was when you were maybe debating it.
Yes, it is still very much there, and I have no reason to believe that now that I have no authority, I would be able to make a difference. But look, my view is very clear on that. That you know my position. I've taken this position as the leader of Star and Disney, that if everybody is participating, only then Star would participate. Simply because we were the only company that had a substantial stake in streaming and a substantial share of television. And if some of the big streaming giants were not participating in that, Star should not participate, because you just because of Star's origins in TV, Star should not just do what the TV people do, because if its streaming service it is not competing with TV, it's competing with its streaming peers. And if Netflix does not participate, and if Amazon Prime is not participating, why should Hotstar participate? I mean, that position remains the same. I think the world has moved beyond uh, this concentrated one company measuring data for everybody. The world is moving, Vikram, towards disintermediation. And I'm fundamentally opposed to creating any kind of intermediaries, because intermediaries are usually brought in, and Bach is a great example of that, are usually brought in with good intentions, and then the intermediaries start serving only themselves. They don't serve either of the two parties that they're supposed to intermediate between.
Fantastic. Okay, closing last two questions. You've closely observed the entire advertising and marketing ecosystem, and you've seen how advertisers, agencies, and media owners behave. In this very vibrant and fast growing ad market, which of the three stakeholders have dharma on their sides? Is everybody, do you find you've dealt with all of them? Do you think everybody is doing equally righteous job, or are some people doing it more than others?
No, I think it would be. I think they're all by and large. I find there may be individual aberrations, but by and large, as community, it's one of the more honorable communities that I've seen, and I see that now across the board in my capacity. I mean, because I'm involved with businesses beyond media now, I see that, and I have to tell you that I find my criticism of people in advertising on the agency side, or in broadcasting or content side, my criticism of them is of not having bold enough vision, sometimes too fixated on the past, being too tactical. But I don't think as a community it's a dishonorable community. Actually, I think they have done more for this country than they get recognized for, and that's one of the disappointments that I have. I think we have undersold ourselves. This is something that I started with. I think we do not see the role that we have played in this country. You know, if Unilever is a big company and so successful in this country, of course its products are the reason why they're successful, and I'm just taking an example. It's not about Unilever, as you can imagine, but to say that those people who manage the advertising for Unilever, media buys, and the channels on which Unilever products were advertised, I mean, just imagine if there was no television channel, the biggest product would not find a platform to convey its message day after day with consistency and accuracy, and build a national proposition or a brand. So I think media has played a really, really positive, constructive role in this country.
Great.
And because we are not mindful of the deep contribution we make, and we ourselves sometimes largely get distracted by, oh, we are entertainment, we are glamour, and we are all of that. We don't take ourselves seriously enough, so the world doesn't take us seriously enough. I think it's a great community, and this country, there are many things wrong with media, but this country would have been a much worse country to live in without media.
That's a very, very telling statement. Thank you. That's very good, very heartening. So we can't let you leave without you just telling us a little bit more about what your partnership with James Murdoch is, and what can we all of us look forward to in 21.
So, as you know, Vikram, I take a long time to think about things, and then I figure out something, and then I stick with it until I make it work. I'm in the first phase. I'm still taking a lot of time to think about things. But broadly, both James and I are really sort of excited about the potential of technology. And I have a very high level thesis, which I will, share with you and with our audience today. My whole thesis is that all the mass consumption services in this country, services and products, were not designed to meet the aspirations of 135 crore people. Whether it is media, just imagine 25 years ago, or play back 25, 30 years ago, why private media came up, not because somebody invited or not because it was part of a government policy. Private media came up because there was an unmet need which the official providers were not able to meet, whether it is the DAVP, whether it is Doordarshan, whether it is AIR, whether it is whatever. So entrepreneurship came in to bridge the gap, and today we have created, a massive industry around that. I think it's the same with, and that aspiration is growing today with more people owning mobile handsets and devices. The desire for consuming more content is just growing, and the current structures are grossly inadequate. You can only serve this by using technology in a very, very deep fundamental way, because that's the only way you can create consistent outcomes which are satisfying and which are at scale without bringing down the bank. Similarly, I think areas like education and healthcare, the same thing. Education in this country was created, formal education system was created by Macaulay, not for the benefit of this country, but to create a small class of, clerks for the British Empire. And after independence, honestly, with commitment, successive political establishments have built on that. But the foundation has remained the same. Today, the one thing that's common is that everybody in this country, even a beggar, I'm just using this as an example, but even a poor beggar wants his child to be educated because they're very convinced that if their child has to have a better destiny, education is one essential tool. Same for healthcare. Healthcare wasn't built, hospitals were not created with the hope or with the agenda that everybody can go there and get treated. So you have this widening gap between aspiration and possibility of supply with the best of intent. The one thing that we have with us is technology, which can, not everybody needs to go to a school to learn. Not everybody needs to go to a hospital. COVID has told us that you can be at home and do a lot of things, including get yourself treated. Most doctors were not available, but we got ourselves treated in using technology. And even though we were not ready for it, just imagine the power of technology. If you have the strategy, you're ready for it, and you build that. So for the rest of my life, I want to just give it a shot. You harness the power of technology to meet the needs of people who are being badly or underserved right now. I come from that part of the world. As you know, I come from Bihar. I have some exposure to what the underserved population's aspirations are and what are the challenges that they are facing. Hopefully, I'll be able to do something towards that.
Uday Shankar, thank you so much. As always, you promised, you've delivered all that you promised. It was uplifting, it was provocative, it was definitely thought-provoking, maybe controversial also, but very, very uplifting. Thank you ever so much for this lovely conversation.
Thank you, Vikram. Delighted to be, having, as I told you that I have packed my bags and I didn't want to talk about media, but you are one of the oldest friends that I have in media. So it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Shankar and Mr. Sakhuja.